This is Scotty Reid with Black Talk Radio News Videocast, and joining us is the founder of CulturalGrassroots.com, Mr. Marlin Williams. Thank you for joining us tonight, sir.
Hey, Scotty, and you just gave me a new uh, family name.
Did I?
It's Marlin Adams.
I thought that's what I said, Marlin Adams. What did
You
I
said
say?
Williams, but it's funny because my wife's maiden name is Williams.
Oh, really? Well, my apologies. My
Ain't no
apologies.
thing. I just
All
want to
right.
make sure the audience didn't mistake me for Marlon Williams,
Okay.
whoever he is.
All right. Well, we have Mr. Marlin Adams. He again is the founder of CulturalGrassroots.com, and we are speaking to him about some big news that published on the website CulturalGrassroots.com in terms of crowdfunding. And did in the email blast that you sent out, Mr. Adams, you asked a question, or you say that President Obama just did a historic thing, and that it also could be the keys to black business building. Some new rules coming from the Securities and Exchange Commission concerning crowdfunding online.
Yeah, it is big news. It's big news to the crowdfunding community in general, and big news to people who are champions of the jumpstart our what was it? I guess the Jumpstart Our Economy Act or whatever it ultimately was called. But it was a at the time the importance of what Obama was doing with the trying to spur small business and recognizing at the time that crowdfunding was a new mechanism that small business could benefit from, as well as the what is technically understood and described as the unaccredited investor community, which essentially is all of the rest of us. Um, and it took a while. This Jobs Act passed, and I believe it was 2012. I believe it finally was passed, and Title III was passed, and it was passed on to the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, to develop the rules, which is typical with most big legislation, that the rules govern in the operations of the new legislation and new laws have to be developed by the specific agency in charge of those developing standards and practices for those industries. And certainly, Securities and Exchange is a big one. And they took quite a while. They did a lot of outreach to the public and public comments and so on and so forth. But finally, we have the final rule, and the final rule allows crowdfunding to move from donor rewards for the money that you put up to equity in the project or company for the same money. So instead of a T-shirt saying I donated to the great project, you can now say I have an ownership share in the project. And that's made possible by these final rules by the Securities and Exchange Commission that we're pretty excited about.
So, in layman terms, how does that work? Now, most of us get the concept of we're donating to a crowdfunding business venture, and we're not talking about nonprofits. We're not talking about nonprofit fundraising things of that. We're talking about businesses, for lack of a better word. We're talking about the capitalist system, and we're talking about capitalism and investment capital is what we're talking about. And so now these rules are going to regulate that. And so that means when somebody contributes to a crowdfunding ideal, then they become an investor. Now, what determines, how do they gain wealth from that based on the health of the company? What governs the percentage or the dividends, the dividends and all of that? In terms of their investment. So how do they become shareholders? In effect, are they buying shares? Are they
Yeah, I
yeah.
got it. I got it. Let me jump in it. Um, it's just like any other investment it's just like what investors in Wall Street companies what they're getting when they become in shareholders. The rules as it relates to what you are, what your rights are as a shareholder. None of that changes. The only thing that changes is really how these investments are advertised
Hmm.
and who has access to them in the first instance. Okay. Now, how these investments are advertised with the new rules, a offerer or a business that would like to raise money can now go to the internet, can go to a crowdfunding portal that is registered as a crowdfunding portal, equity portal, a portal that deals with equity um, shares, equity projects. They can go to these crowdfunding portals and advertise to the general public. That's a new thing and a big thing. And the public that they can advertise to is defined as the unaccredited investor public, which means that you make essentially less than $1 million, worth of less than $1 million, make less than $1 million. It's That's the sort of cutoff. You have to be able to
You're not like a big
show.
investment firm that makes
You're not a big
purchases.
investment firm, but your
Yeah.
cutoff is that you're not a person who makes $1 million. Okay,
Hmm.
that was the accredited investor community, the ones in which all projects, all businesses had to appeal to this small group of people. Now, it's a big group relatively, but it's a small group relatively to the general population, right?
Right.
And it's special ways that you have to get to them. They're not just standing on the corner. So this thing really opens up and egalitizes the process of raising money. It really opens it up to the everyman on the street, and so what it breaks down sort of the barriers to entry into business and into high finance. That's a big thing, not only for the general investment and community, but also just regular mom and pops who want to, instead of just turning over their trust fund to their kid, they can now get shares in the company, and instead of their friends and family calling into the site to contribute $5 to urge and encourage Johnny to go forward. Now they're buying 5 shares of Johnny's company, and they can share in his success, and as well as some of the downsides that comes with it. Obviously, if the company goes belly up, you lose your money. But I don't really think the issue for as it relates to crowdfunding, as it relates to this new crowdfunding rule, the Title III rules, that allowing unaccredited investors to invest in companies and get a share of the ownership structure of the company. I don't think it's really about the money that you're spending in this instance, because heretofore you were donating the money,
Right. Right.
and all you were getting was a thank you and possibly a T-shirt, and there were obviously other gifts. I'm being facetious when I say that's all you get is a T-shirt, but it was essentially a donation reward model, an altruistic model, if you will. And we don't. I think crowdfunding still, in in theory and in spirit and purpose, it's still there's still some altruism involved there. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Right.
In the sense that you're just I'm a regular guy who gets excited about projects, games, okay,
Hmm.
digital games on TV, and I really like the variety of stuff that comes out, and I would be excited to be a part of a guy who is making games, and he makes an exciting game. So I'm going to give you a couple of dollars just so I can be part of it, because I enjoy that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
now that enjoy, I think that's still good. We still want to retain that connection to the projects and to the ideas, but I think nobody is going to be sad that that $5 that you gave, instead of just a T-shirt and a thank you and the satisfaction of being part of a great project, you also have got 5 points, whatever the points are going to be defined as, or let's just say, for the sake of argument, you got 5% of whatever this company actually ultimately ends up making. Good example of a win, a massive win, would be an Oculus Rift virtual reality headset that was crowdfunded on Kickstarter, I believe. They asked for 100,000. They ended up raising 10 million for this a headset that actually it's a virtual reality headset. It's called Oculus Rift.
And this is
And
before the new rules, right?
this is before the new rules, right? And so after they asked for 100,000, they raised 10 million. They put the prototype together. They it's refined the technology, and Facebook comes along and buys them for $2 billion.
Wow.
So the people who gave money, that first 100,000, and what ultimately became 10 million, would all be shareholders right now. And I don't really at the top of my head know the amount of people it took to raise the 10 million. It could have been, it could have been 80,000 people. You know what I mean?
But they would have got a share of that
They would have gotten a share of that
when
$2
it
billion
was sold
sale.
to Facebook.
Right. So people are excited about that, and I think that for culturalgrassroots.com, it's what we've been waiting for, because I think for black folks, we are really accustomed to people coming with all types of ideas where it only seems that the central figures in the promotion of the idea are ever really rewarded for it. Okay, and so the question I heard quite a bit in some of the comments in promoting the idea of crowdfunding, the idea of funding the world we want to see,
Right.
the images and stories we want to see, the businesses we want to see, the idea of that, promoting that idea. I heard a lot. What's in it for me? Am I just donating? Well, now the answer to that question is, what's in it for you is that you've got a piece of business, and you have some skin in the game, as they say, and some vested interest in seeing projects.
Let me explain it this way, Mr. Adams. Okay, because our media operations is through the North Carolina-based nonprofit Black Talk Media Project. We're pretty much operating on the same model as public broadcast systems, NPR, where we have a donor model to fund our operations. Now, our donors give to us because they see that there is a lack of independent black media, and therefore they want to fund a nonprofit, just like people fund NPR, fund PBS.
Sure.
But what we're talking about now, in regards to these new rules, if I wanted to go and start a for-profit a media company, then I could utilize this instead of me. And let's also break it down to how does it help the black business entrepreneur escape the system of racism. Because now, instead of me having to go to, let's say, you name one of the corporate banks that have a history of discriminating and redlining and whatnot, now
Sure.
I can take it straight to the people, and then they can become shareholders, investors in my company, in a for-profit company, instead of just being nonprofit donors.
You hit it on the head there. That's exactly what it means. It means that we setting up a real cooperative. That's what we're in the belly of the capitalist beast in the West, obviously, in terms of what we've been able to accomplish here in America. And we're run on a very sort of socialistic principle, which is the cooperative. That's what a corporation is. It's a cooperative of people who've gotten together to pursue a particular interest. That's all a corporation is. That's all a corporation is. And now it's easier for regular people to get together in a cooperative way and to pursue a common interest with this crowdfunding, because the internet is ubiquitous. It's as easy as going to a website and saying, "Wow, there's a product there, or a hair product, a brand new genetically based hair product for black folks' hair, and this inventor, this scientist who came up with the formula, and it didn't cost him much. He did it in his little basement lab, and he's asking for $20,000 to get to get this first shipment out." That becomes a business, and the hair product blows up. It becomes popular, and now it is a nationwide business that started as a crowdfunded. The initial capital was crowdfunded. That's what we're talking about here, the potential, because when you look at most startups, okay, the initial round of funding is usually below $1 million on most startups. Somewhere in the area of 300,000, that's the kind of money we're talking about in terms of generally speaking. But many startups start for much less than that. And depending on what what kind of business it is. Usually, I think the smart businesses, and not exclusively, but the smart opportunities usually involve an entrepreneur who's been in the marketplace with the business, has proven his concept and has gotten sales, and he's in the process, and he sees the opportunity, and he's lined it up, and he says, wow, if I just had $75,000, I could expand, I can hire a salesperson, I could open up this region, I could bring on more product, build my inventory up. Where can I get that amount of money on the fly? From people that don't know me.
Right. And also, I'm thinking about the television program Shark Tank, where you have these people who are competing with other people to even make it onto the show, and then pitch their idea to these 4 or 5 individuals, who then make a determination based on the presentation whether or not they want to become investors in that program. Now you don't even have to go on Shark Tank. You can use the internet and put together your presentation to the masses of people out there, and then they can collectively invest in your business.
Yeah, and that's what the key difference between what's going on right now with Kickstarter, with Indiegogo, GoFundMe. The key difference is that now you can become an owner.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to inspire a lot more people to get in to take crowdfunding a little more serious, and to really look at what it offers. But I think for Black folks, we have an opportunity to really create a connection, an umbilical cord, if you will, between our body politic, the rest of us, and our best and brightest innovators and creators and entrepreneurs. Heretofore, you had a great idea. Your first thought was not your friends and family. Mm-hmm. Like for most Black folks, their first thought is, how do I get to Wall Street? How do I get to outside of my community, to where the investment happens, where angels live, that kind of thing. And I think now with this equity crowdfunding, we can be the angels for our best and brightest thinkers, tinkerers, and entrepreneurs who have great projects and ideas that just need to have startup capital. And also, what comes with that is the networks. Okay, it's not just from our standpoint, it's not just the fact that we have 6,000 people contribute to the campaign, and we raised $25,000 for this whatever project. It's that we've got 6,000 people out there that can become part of the infrastructure, whatever's needed. If it's sales infrastructure, okay, let's go to this network. There's 6,000 people who contributed, and see if we can set up a sales network. Are there salespeople in the 6,000 who contributed? Are there enough there to constitute a regional sales network, right? So this is how we got to think, right? Because we have a nice product. You do need to not only get the product produced, and reviewed and tested and so on and so forth and packaged, but now it has to go out. Right. And we should not think, okay, now it's time to turn it over to some other
to
people.
Walmart, like if we take Patty LaBelle's pie.
Well, Walmart is a retailer, so that's another thing. But
we're talking about the distribution. I'm talking about
the regional distributor, right, who has an account with people like Walmart and other people. Right. We don't, that's not where we want to turn it over. We want to be able to extend our reach into those, into that parts of the infrastructure as well. So from producer, from idea person to financiers, to the packagers, right? Now to the salespeople, to the distributors, the actual logistic people who get the product physically where it needs to get, and the salespeople who actually make contact with our audience.
So do you think culturalgrassroots.com and the Black crowdfunding portal that you're building, and we should mention, you are still collecting email addresses for potential investors, and again, like you stated in your email, I mean, this is really big news, because let's look at the Justice or Else rally. We know coming out of that rally, and even before that rally, a lot of people were talking about a Buy Black movement, identifying black businesses to recirculate black dollars or recycle black dollars. Well, we hear the phrase black dollars matter, and this takes it to the level to where black investment dollars matter.
This really matters. And, those people, I hate to say it, man, but I think most protests in America, for most black people, at the heart of what they're asking for is attention. They want attention. They want positive attention from the mainstream. It's not, they're not, well, that's what the goal is. The goal with crowdfunding, the goal with building business, is to create your own infrastructure of self-sufficiency, right? That's the goal of what we're doing with that's what you do with investment. That's what you do with business building. That's what crowdfunding is all about. It's not, the goal is not to get the attention of the mainstream, right? That's not our goal. And to say, hey, pay attention to us, no, our goal is to say there are opportunities to make ourselves competitive, right? There are opportunities to make ourselves competitive in any number of ways. And the way that we take advantage of those opportunities is through financing, right? We need finance to match the innovation coming from our entrepreneurs. Because if they have to go outside of the community to get that finance, that's it. They're gone. They're gone. They cease to become a part of an infrastructure building process, and they become individuals who have succeeded. And ain't nothing wrong with that. We all know that, right? But that is never been our problem.
But somebody else owns the infrastructure and not the black community.
And the infrastructure is what ascribes the value to what they're doing. Whatever they're doing, value has to be ascribed to it. And the infrastructure is what ascribes value, right? So we have the opportunity to ascribe value to our goods, our services, and our ideas. That's how big this is.
Well,
that's how big this is.
Mr. Adams, I want to thank you for speaking with us and our viewers tonight. And do you have any closing words? Again, pitch the website, culturalgrassroots.com, and people, and tell people why they should come and register their email in light of this new rule and what it means to your mission and goal through the website and the crowdsourcing portal that you're building.
Thanks, Scotty. It's always a pleasure. And you've been there at every turn when something new was happening in the business. You were first on the scene to report it, and that's a service. I take my hat off to you, and certainly thank you for being there, helping to spread the word about this great opportunity that crowdfunding is. And that's the final message. The first message, the final message is that it's an opportunity for us to literally fund the world that we want to see. There's some very strategic opportunities that we can take advantage of through the use of crowdfunding to help promote and to help to nurture, help to grow, and help invest in our best and our brightest, our thinkers, tinkers, and entrepreneurs that have projects and ideas and businesses that help to build an infrastructure of self-sufficiency through which we become, more competitive worldwide, and take our terminal dependency and turn it into a interdependency that we share with the rest of the world. That ultimately is, I think, what our goal is.
Thank you again, Mr. Adams, and we will be in touch. And thank you all for tuning in to Black Talk Radio News.